Hi everyone, welcome to the eastern side of Cape Breton Island. We're at the very top of the Franey Trail today. Yesterday I got an email from a recent graduate asking if I had any tips for young people who were doing job interviews right now to try to get into the workforce. One of the things that I think it's really important to remember is that job interviews shouldn't be about the past. Job interviews need to be about the future that you want with this company and the future that they should get excited about by adding you to it. The problem is, I think, that most people talk about what they've done in job interviews. Don't talk about what you've done. Focus on what you can do in job interviews. Take a look at the things that you usually list off as reasons that you should have a job, and don't list the actual experiences. List the specific skills that those experiences have helped you develop. And that may mean you have to think about it beforehand. But honestly, when you do a job interview, only talk about what you've done in the context of using it to prove that you have specific skills that are going to add value to the people who are interviewing you. One of the things that I've discovered in job interviews is that people focus on talking about the things that make them employable as opposed to the things that make them extraordinary. For instance, I used to ask a very simple question that I stopped asking because it never taught me anything. I would ask people, what are your 3 biggest strengths? What would you answer if someone asked you that right now? What are your 3 biggest strengths? The problem was I kept getting very predictable, very obvious answers that I would have assumed anyone I was interviewing already had. For instance, people would say things like, well, I'm excellent working with people, I have wonderful time management skills, and I'm a self-starter. I'm going to assume that everyone I interview has those basic skills. Look at it this way. What if I was going to set you up on a blind date and you asked, what's the person like? And I said, well, they work really well with people, they have excellent time management skills, and they're a self-starter. It doesn't get you that excited. Focus on the things that make you extraordinary, that's going to make you a really special addition to the community that these people are the gatekeepers, to which these people are the gatekeepers, really. For instance, I like what Seth Godin's approach in the book Linchpin, Are You Indispensable? He said, think about your best friend. Now imagine someone walked up to your best friend and asking about you, said, that person, what do they bring to your life that no one else does? If someone asked your best friend what you bring to their life that no one else does, what would your best friend say? That's an extraordinary talent, and it's one that you then figure out, how did you do it for them, and how can you add that to more people? And then you talk about things like that in the job interview. Think about 3 individuals who are really close to you, and imagine a stranger walked up and asked about you, what do you bring to their life that no one else does? What would they say about you? What do you bring to their life that nobody else does? Those 3 answers, you need to work that into job interviews to demonstrate that you have an ability to change other people's lives. And everyone does that because everybody's got those 3 people in their life. Now, there's an approach to take when you talk about your specific skills that I think more people should use. It's got 3 steps. 1, when you're answering a question, identify the skill that you want to highlight and be declarative about it right off the top. 2, give a specific example of when that particular skill was demonstrated. Prove it. Say what it is and then prove it. For instance, I once had a young man look at me and say, I'm inspirational. And you know what? I hadn't heard very many people say that. As one of the 3 things, he said, I'm inspirational. And I said, okay. And then he gave me a specific example. He said, I have a little brother in the Big Brothers Big Sisters program who has Asperger's. And I would go out and we'd just wander around some days, round around the town. He liked to walk and he wouldn't ever talk to anybody. But I always would. I'm kind of an outgoing guy. And then one day he told me, you're inspiring to me. And I said, how? And he said, I don't have the courage to talk to people the way you do. But every time I see how you can make other people smile with your words, it gives me a little bit more incentive to start using the opportunity to communicate and make people smile. I haven't gotten there yet, but I want to let you know that you inspire me every time I watch you do it, because I realize that talking to people can make them smile, even though it terrifies me. And that to me is a specific example of what he was saying. He didn't say, well, I'm in charge of a lot of things and people have told me. That's a general story. And if you can't come up with a specific example that demonstrates what you've said, we assume that you can't come up with one. That's the first 2. Be declarative about your skill and then describe it. A specific example of how it's true. It's the 3rd part that people forget. You have to tell the interviewer why it matters to them. Why should they care? In the case of this young man, he said, I'm an inspirational person. He told me that story, and then he said, if I can demonstrate that to him, I think that I can come into your community knowing that I'm the new guy, but knowing that I'm going to spend 6 to 8 hours a day with these other people. And I think that that means that what you're going to be adding to your company is someone who makes the people around them feel a little bit better about life and feel a little bit better about their workplace. What was the skill, a specific example, and why it matters to the person across from you. Don't tell them you have time management skills if you don't have a specific example and you can prove it, and then make sure you tell them why it's going to matter to them. Don't tell them that you're creative unless you can give a specific example of creativity, and then tell them why does that matter to their specific job. Those 3 steps. Make sure that your job interviews are about the future, not the past. Make sure that you're talking about what makes you extraordinary, and make sure that you're taking the 3-step process. What are you good at? Prove it, and then why it matters to them. Thanks, guys.